Hello everybody, I'm Leah. Welcome back to the Flanzella Collage College. Today we're covering a topic that I know a lot of you struggle with, and that is blank page syndrome. The page stares at you, it's blank. You look back, you leave it for a couple days, you come back, it's still blank. You wonder if you have it in you still to make another masterpiece. And it continues like that forever and ever until the page is no longer blank. A blank page has an intensity like no other. This can be scary. I know I've definitely been there. There are a lot of ways around it, but a lot of it comes from within. So we're going to talk about those traits that you might have that you can kind of work on and some ways to get around it. I also want to talk on the idea of being in a funk where you're not really making art, you're not feeling inspired. I think these two have a lot more in common than people think. I'm feeling like this is going to be part pep talk, part rant, so stick with me. Firstly, the people struggling with blank page syndrome, you probably need to look a little bit within. This is probably due to the fact that you think that a paper will need to be a masterpiece every single time, but that's truly not the case. By making more, you're going to have a better chance of making a really great piece. And it's okay to make bad art. We've all been there. I definitely feel like I go through periods where I make things that I really don't like, and then other people really like them sometimes, or we just all hate them, and that's okay. As I've said in previous videos, I don't think all the art that we make is for ourselves. I think it's for other people to see as well. Not everything has to be great. Not everyone has to like it. It's about the journey to getting to the masterpiece. And if you're not practicing, you're not going to get there. I know a lot of people struggle with magazines specifically. They look at them, they're like, this is a really nice picture. I don't know if I want to try cutting it out. What if I screw it up? What if I save it for when I'm better at cutting out, etc. But what I like to do is I have a scanner and I'll scan them in, and then that way it gives me the opportunity to print them out again if I screw up. This has been really helpful for me because I sometimes find papers and I'm like, ooh, this one's really good and this one's gonna be really tough to cut out. I've never actually had to use these backup files before, but it's nice to know that they're there if I do screw up. It takes the pressure off of it for me. This is something that I would definitely recommend you do as well. And the next is working with your ideologies. If you think that you're gonna screw it up every single time or not gonna be able to use it, or these papers are precious, I know that a lot of people talk about that, then you're never gonna make anything. And it's like, if you have a really good piece, like you could make it into something better. It's remixing, and remix songs sometimes are the better option, right? The next thing that I think people need to change in their minds is that we are not archivalists, we are collage artists. As an occupation, an archivalist is taking old things and storing them and making sure that they'll last a lifetime, making sure they're documented, etc. That is not our job. Those people have already done these for every magazine. You don't have to worry about that. If you're scared to cut something up thinking it's worth a lot of money, you can always use your phone or use Google Lens, for example, and see if it comes up on eBay or something. If it's worth like thousands of dollars, yeah, maybe. But for me, it's like none of these ads are usually very uncommon just because I'm using mass-produced media. But if you are using smaller like art magazines and that sort of thing, maybe it's worth just looking up before you cut it, if that's what's stopping you. But again, are you actually going to go out of your way to like sell it on eBay or something? For me, probably not. Definitely not. So I think that it's like this idea of potential. I feel like we need to make it in our heads that that's not even relevant. The next is viewing the paper like a masterpiece. A lot of people here are perfectionists and they're like, ooh, I don't want to screw this up. I want to make something amazing every time. That is not how art works. Everything you make is not going to be your best piece. It is not like this where you're getting better and better. It's more like this, right? I'll link my video here. I think I kind of talked about this as well, and that your art is really not for you. It's a vessel of a message that needs to get out of you. That's how I really feel about my art. I don't think that it's up to us to feel bad about the art that we make. It's almost like a valve. We're just like releasing something into the world. And I don't think that you should link your confidence to your art. So yeah, if you're interested, this video next. I think the people that are able to make art every day know this. They are just making to create. They're on a journey, they're learning, and they're going to produce as much as they possibly can. Now, I'm not saying every person has to produce art all the time, every single day, but there is nothing different between you and a person that makes art all the time. These people are not a different species. They are not built different, but they've taken the time to make it a habit of theirs, and they've carved out time in their day, every single day, to be able to do art. This is a huge distinction in their life. And if you want to be in that category, it's possible. Let's use reading, for example. A lot of people are like, oh, I could never read every day. People have a lot of time for that. Absolutely not. This is something that I have worked up to in the last 6 months, and I've carved out 1 full hour every single day to read. How have I done it? I simply changed my bedtime to be a little bit earlier and make sure that I'm in bed to have a full hour of reading before going to bed. It wasn't that much of a difference. What was I really doing in those extra 30 minutes around the house? Probably nothing, but now I'm able to do something that's more fulfilling for me. And I think that this is how art needs to work in your head. If you want to make art, are you living a creative life? What does an artist's life look like to you versus your life? I think that this is a good exercise that I think a lot of people would benefit from writing it down. If it's saying going to gallery opens and etc., maybe that's something that you need to do as well. Or if it's creating every day, there is a way to do that. It's also a matter of discipline and being like, I want to do art a lot. For me, I don't make art every day. And that's because I also want to be so many other things. I'm a designer, a home decorator, a cook. I love to go on my long walks. And as I said, I'm a reader. So I try to fit all those hobbies in one thing. But maybe this looks different every single day, but you're dedicating 1 hour to it. You have to make the space and time for each one. What if it's just about spending 1 hour a day as a full-time artist? What does that look like in your life? If that is creating every day, good. You have 1 hour every single day. For me, I thought about this, and I think that there's some days where you just don't want to. And I think that that's where you have to fill it in with certain other activities. Maybe that's watching documentaries of other artists. I know that that can be really hard when Netflix is available. So what would that look like if you took 1 hour the first night to make an entire list of all the documentaries on artists that you really want to watch? And then that way you watch an art documentary instead of some random show. Or maybe it's walking to a gallery on the way to a restaurant or something like that. It's taking the time to mentally think about how you can make your life more creative. And maybe you're sitting there like, how does this relate to what we're talking about? It 100% is a direct correlation, I promise you. Let's explain. The only year of my life that I didn't make art was when I was living the completely wrong life for me, and I didn't really know it at the time. I was running a tech business, I was living in the wrong place, I was seeing the wrong people. I knew I had entrepreneurial traits, but I was using it in like a tech bro way versus a creative way. Creativity has always been such a big part of my life that it felt kind of weird. I was like, yeah, I don't really have the want or need to create anything right now. That's so weird. But it wasn't until after that period where I got back into creating and I was like, oh, like my vibrations, whatever you want to call it, were so off for where I needed to be in life for an art career. And maybe that's a big part of it too. Maybe your life is not inspiring you to make art. You have to be inspired. And I know that we all can't have incredible lives where we're running off to galleries all the time. But how could you incorporate one thing into your day right now that would make you feel like more of an artist? And I don't want to say run to Michael's and grab craft supplies or something. I'm talking like, how could you experiment today? How could you do something creative? Just small to make it a routine to do something creative. And something that you might have not thought about, maybe you have, is that you need to get out of your own way. I admit the world is a very tough place. So why are you making your own boundaries for yourself? There's this false sense of pressure on yourself for making a masterpiece every time. Why is that there? Creativity doesn't go in a box. We all know that. It's about coloring outside of your box. But we all have this mentality that everything we're gonna make is gonna be grand. It's gonna be the next best piece. But it does not have to. Creativity should come from a place within. The goal is to have fun. How could you turn around right now, grab a piece of paper, and have fun? What does that look like to you? For me, at least, art is the one place in my life I feel like I'm allowed to let loose completely and just be myself and do whatever I really want to do. Life is conforming. We have a 9-to-5 schedule for most of us. The stores are open at certain times. We have to go to dinner at certain times. All of those things are predetermined. But in art, anything's a possibility, literally anything. So it's about getting yourself outside of that. Give yourself the freedom, let yourself off the leash, see what you can create. A lot of people say that this could be linked to having a parent that kind of only gave you praise when something was really good. And I think that a lot of the time we need to think of that voice inside and think of who is the one that's giving us the criticism. A lot of the time you can kind of tell if it's like coming from your own voice or if it's coming from someone else. And if it's coming from your own voice, would you tell your best friend that? I don't think so. Think about yourself like you're your best friend. And when you're making art, be like, oh, this is fun. This is cool. You know, I think we need to like start pepping ourselves up. If you're putting aside time to put yourself down, don't do that. Waste of time. If you're bringing anxiety into the mix of what you can do wrong or whatever, throw that out the door. What if you just sat there and had no negative thoughts for like an hour and made art? I think that it would be a pretty amazing hour. I love to talk about how ugly art is going to save your art career. What if you grabbed a piece of paper right now and tried to make the ugliest thing possible? What would that even look like? Where would you start? That idea is one that a lot of artists use to push their art career. Sometimes they'll start using different methods that they never even thought of. I know I've kind of talked about this a little bit. And it's not about being good or bad. It's just like, how can I make this as ugly as possible? What colors are you bringing in? What patterns? How are you cutting the paper? Etc. Like, there's so many different things. It's kind of a fun idea. The other game I love to play with a blank page is just grabbing a random piece out of my folder. I'll just literally go like this, grab something, and then you have to create with that. And one of my favorite anxiety-inducing games I love to do to myself, is applying for massive art shows that I am 100% not prepared for. This has pushed me way past my limits for creating anything that's crazy. Anything is possible. But for you, that could just be submitting one art piece to an open call or something like that. A lot of people are procrastinators. Hello, procrastinators. Sometimes you guys just need a deadline. What if it's looking for open calls and just submitting to them? That gives you a really hard date. Sometimes it gives you guidelines. School really teaches us to go by a rubric, and there isn't really a rubric in art. So some people do need that structure, and that's okay. Maybe it's finding a friend that you can do creative pursuits with. Maybe they can write while you collage. I had a friend that did something similar to this, where they would book a cafe and all their friends would come and work on their creative pursuits together for 3 hours. And those people ended up like writing books and like finishing gigantic art projects, and they didn't even think that that would ever happen. But if you're sitting there being like, well, I'm in a slump, I don't want to create, I got something for you as well. Breathing and art have a lot in common. The first question to you is, have you breathed in yet? What does that mean? It means, have you been inspired? Have you gone and seen art? Have you baked, if that's something that makes you creative? Have you gone for a walk and seen some new things? Have you gone shopping? Have you listened to a podcast that inspired you? Everyone has different things of what this could look like. Sometimes it's just about like feeling culture around you to get inspired. How are you supposed to breathe out with no air? No air. If your tank isn't full, you can't drive the car, right? If you're thirsty and the glass is empty, you can't drink. All of these are terrible metaphors for creating art. But you need to look to your soul. Are you nourishing it? Once you've breathed in, then you can breathe out. And that breath out is art making. You cannot breathe out without doing the steps that I said before this. And you need to find those things that are relevant to you. And again, maybe look inwards and see if you're living a fulfilled life. How could you make your life more fulfilling? The last thing that works for me every time is the 15-minute challenge. If you set a stopwatch, not a timer, and you do 15 minutes at your desk, I put the phone to the side, and then I will have no distractions and just start creating for 15 minutes. Every single time I do that, by the time I'm checking it for the first time, it's way past 15 minutes and I've just like delved into it. Sometimes it's just getting there. And then that way, if you're not creating after 15 minutes, you can just be like, okay, well, at least I tried. A lot of people that are into fitness do this. They're like, oh, I really don't want to go to the gym, but I'll just get there and see what happens. And a lot of the time they'll end up staying way longer than they thought. And they give themselves the option to just leave if they're not feeling it. Fitness and art have a lot in common. I think a lot of people think that it's this creative juice that we need. No creative juice. That doesn't exist. It's all about living an artist life that inspires you to create the art that you want to make. So get in shape. It's like a boot camp. And my favorite phrase of all time, just do it. Do not think. Do not make an excuse. The world is tough enough. You deserve to make art, okay? What would happen if you shut off this video right now and you just went and did it? Food for thought. Maybe you're sitting there and you're like, Leah, it's been 4 years since I picked up a pair of scissors and tried to collage or made anything creative. What would happen if you just turned off this video right now and spent the next 4 hours doing that? That would be revolutionary. And it would probably get you out of your funk. If you're a people pleaser and you need someone to tell you to do it, go do it. I'm telling you right now. Do it for me. The world needs more art. It doesn't need more negative or criticism. Okay, let's say you're busy right now and you're just fitting this video in before running out the door. What if you took out your calendar right now and put in 4 times in the next month that you're going to sit down and create art that are non-negotiable, can't move it? Maybe you have a motivational gift for yourself. Maybe there's something little that you've really wanted for a long time. Maybe you say if you make those 4, then you get the thing. And maybe one of those things is a new art print for your wall from me, maybe. You can go check out all my art on my website. Maybe you want to buy yourself a little original. I have a whole bunch now. I find that having art in my space from other artists really inspires me. And so I hope I can do the same for you. Also, if you buy a collage pack, I'm sure you'll be very inspired to create with it. So yeah, go check out flanzella.com. Maybe you have a partner or a friend that can keep you accountable to this if you're not good at those things. But for me, I love a challenge and I love the gamification. So it definitely works for me, and I hope that it works for you. So I've said a lot, and we've gone around a lot of different things, but I hope that this was helpful in getting you out of your funk at least. Hopefully I've given you a pep talk. Hopefully you've learned some things. I definitely recommend that you go and write out what an artist's life looks like. I think it's super helpful, and I love doing this activity. And most importantly, just remember that art is for fun. We're supposed to have fun with it, so go have fun. I hope you enjoyed this lecture for Flanzella Collage College, and I will see you next week.